camera shot, please? No, not you, David. Yeah, I think I got it. What do you play, interest music?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And welcome to our Wednesday morning class, coming to you from HeartLight Spiritual Center here in Charlotte. For you that are joining us online, we want to welcome you also, and you that might join us later. We're in a subject, for you that have been following us, understanding some of the events that were going on the closest to the turn of the century 2,000 years ago, at the time that great spiritual change was happening at that time. And I'm convinced that if we want to understand the true teachings of the esoterical aspect of Christianity, and there is an esoterical part of Christianity, so you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And that's one thing that I invite people to be careful about, is to say all Christianity is bad and all doctors are bad and all this. Don't get into the absolutes, because there's no absolutes in this dimension that we live in. We live in a very polarized this and that system. Light, dark, devil, God, heaven, hell. So it's important that we understand a little bit about that idea, I guess, in somewhat. So the closer that you get to the time of the beginning of what is called esoterical Christianity, that you get closer to teachings and events and experiences that were going on that were more pure in themselves before man took them and began to interpret them, translate them, and men begin to find an agenda, which is something that is in the human psyche that is challenging, is we tend to take things that start out very pure and spiritual and in some way try to organize it into a business or something for our own greed. And religion is no exception to that. Doesn't matter what it is. I mean, there was a time that medicine was more pure. When you go to indigenous people and shamans and people who understood things in herbs and nature and whatever, that was the beginning of it. And that was a good thing. Medicine, the medicine wheel, the medicine was different than medicine today. So you can't throw all medicine out. You can't throw all the medical out, because it had a good beginning in its more pure state of being more indigenous people. So it's with everything. I could sit here and name every kind of system there was. It started out much more pure than what it became, because of the fact that man has this appetite for power and greed and control. And so I think rather than throw the baby out with the bathwater, let's go back to the baby before it even needs a bath, right? So you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater if the baby doesn't need the bath. Keep it out of the bath, and then you can see it in its more pure form. So the closer you get back to what was going on in the even late part of the before BC, or whatever you want to call it, and then into the first and second centuries of the first, you find a more pure picture, is what I'm trying to say to you, than before it became organized into some kind of a business. Same way with America. America did not start out as it is today. It had a more pure idea behind it as an experience for democracy and freedom and equality and all that. But it didn't end up there because we made it into a corporation. When America became a corporation, everything changed. And it was never meant to be a huge business of what, and I'm going to get in trouble for this, called capitalism. Capitalism is the business of America that has ended up destroying the early roots of what America was meant to be and could have been. So I'm saying all that to say this is my attraction toward such things as Gnostic teachings and other teachings that have been discovered, I believe, for this time. So I'm going to read you something. Yes, it's out of the Bible, but I'm going to read it anyway because I think it speaks very well. It's Acts 3:21. And it's talking about who, it just starts out who the heavens. The who is you fill in. God, Creator, Spirit, Holy Spirit, whatever your idea of what the Gnostics called the entirety. That's what they call God who cannot be explained. It's just the entirety of truth, the entirety of what is, the entirety of reality. It is the spiritual in its most purest form that the human mind could not even comprehend it. It says, who the heavens must receive until the times of the restitution of all, A-L-L, things which Spirit has spoken by and through the mouth of all holy prophets since the world began.
Could you read that again?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that powerful? Mm-hmm. So that which is a pure spirit, that of pure spirit, is held in the higher states of consciousness that we call an elevated state of spirituality, which we call heaven. The heavens in us is our higher state of consciousness, our spiritual mind, whatever you want to call it. So the heavens has to keep it up there until, here's the key, until the times of restitution of all things which Spirit has spoken through the mouth of the prophet since the world began. So that means everything in its most pure form that's been lost in the reinterpretation of man and man's systems has to be restored back to us before we are clear to become initiates to the next level of our bioconscious evolution. What does that mean to you?
In the restoration, are you talking about on a metaphysical level or on a
spiritual
literal or physical level? Okay.
Okay. What I'm bringing you to is why did the discovery of the Nag Hammadi scriptures be found in 1945? That was a point in time where so much pure scriptures had been hidden from man, so man could not mess with it, but was reserved and hidden and rediscovered 1945, which is most of the time, most of us have probably been alive on this planet. So this speaks to our generation. You understand that? How many was living in 1945? Okay, barely. Well, 1947 also is the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls. So here we are now, after almost 1900 years have found all of these scriptures that have been hidden that is now being restored back to us because it's not been taught in organized Western, especially religion. But they were spoken through people who were prophets and visionaries, which you'll learn about if we stay with this, like Valentina or the Valentinians, and through many other names you've never heard of that's not in the Bible, but they're pre-biblical, and they were truly getting gnosis from God. They weren't getting it through the filter of a religion. They weren't getting it through anything. They were directly connected to spiritual divine mind, and it was coming in its most pure state. But as they saw Christianity coming into the 4th century to become an organized Christian church, they took them and hid them in jars, in caves and different places that has been hidden all this time. But why are they showing up in our generation? So are we the generation? I just don't know how to get this over to you all. I know it's just so difficult sometimes because of your lack of biblical understanding, so bear with me. What's been taken out from Native Americans? What's been taken out from teachings of ancient African Americans? What has been from even Celtic, Irish? Every culture, every nation had a more esoterical aspect of itself, where it's pure. But it became something other than the purity in which birthed it. Why do you think all of a sudden, a few decades, people started going to drummings, and people started going to sweat lodges, and people started getting into Native American culture? Why? Because it was part of the restitution of all things spoken through the mouth of the prophet that had been edited out by Western teaching. That was a bunch of heathens and stupid people, and they were ignorant. It's in everything. That you're living in a time that everything that has been put in secret is being revealed back to us. And that is the purpose behind studying Gnosticism. I still hear, and since I got into this, I still hear everything we're doing is in the confinement of the beginning of religion. Even New Thought and metaphysics still stays in the box, pretty much, of Christian terminology and whatever. And I know I sound like I do, but I think you know that when I use even Bible, it is out of the box. I don't teach it in the box of Christianity. I teach it outside the simulation. That's why people don't flock to me, because I speak out of world concepts. And if your system is in world, you're going to find it challenging to understand gnosis. So, I'm going to read this again. Who the heavens must receive until the times of the restitution of all things, which are spoken by the mouth of the holy prophets. Now, to me, that is just purely the use of our innate common sense, that we have to decide what kind of God are we worshiping. I think the whole idea of a spirituality based on religious concept and thinking has done a very successful job in covering up the truth. I really do. I think they've done a tremendous job of giving us a different picture of the lesser creation being the ultimate creation. And I realized there was a lot of, I guess I wanted you to hear about Christianity outside of Christianity, that there was different diverse groups who were meeting before it was ever organized into a central organization of Christianity. And to me, in studying this, I see certain characteristics that would define HeartLight. And I've told you, this is the challenge of having a community like this, is how do we keep our unique paths and yet connect into a community and not lose our diversity into a one doctrine thinking. And I'm gonna toot my own horn here, but I think I'm probably the better that you're gonna find to do that. And you hear what I'm saying when I say that. Please don't hear me from ego, but I'm saying that I am not promoting any one school of thought. I don't do that. And if you went to any group, any church that teaches based on how do I say this nicely? In other words, if you go to a Baptist church, you're entering Baptist land, the land of the Baptist. The teachings are Baptist. Jesus is Baptist. Everything that you look at is through a Baptist point of view. And even in some new thought, this is why I never gave in, although I was tempted at times to join something like Unity or Science of Mind that was already somewhat of an organized group of people that I agreed with. Unity was my pick, or more picked me than I picked it. I never found the acceptance in Science of Mind that I found in Unity for me, that fit me. But I just couldn't join and become a Unity minister. Because if I did that, that put me into only Unity, the fundamental thinking, and I didn't want to do that. So I've tried to keep it diverse here. I've tried to mix in everything from Course of Miracles to you name it here, because I don't want you to become centralized into one belief system here. I want you to work it out for yourself. I want you to find your own gnosis. Let me say it this way. I want you to find your own experience with knowledge. Not just learn about knowledge, but have an experience with knowledge. And that's the thing that I don't know how to accomplish. I think I'm feeling right now, if I can say this, Rhonda, is as you were sharing with us earlier about the doula and the death thing that you want to do here, there was resistance from all of us a little bit. I know you had to feel it. On that subject, it is resistant. We just don't want to go there by human nature and deal with this, what I believe, very important part of the journey and the knowledge of it. So I'm kind of feeling that same way right now with showing this, because it was a lot of Bible and a lot of about the apostles and things like that. But I'm trying to sneak in a little way of giving you some history of Christianity and how it became what it became as a Christian religion that was arrogant enough to say we are the only true belief in church like that. So that was what that was kind of about. I'm not sure I picked the exact right one. So what I want to go into is a deeper, what I've been going on to with you since I've been here on this kind of subject. I've snuck it in through Who's Your Daddy? Somehow that has been a way for me to get in with people since I received the revelation in 1989 that the God of the Old Testament he's calling Eldeboth is Yahweh of the New Testament. Of the Old Testament, sorry. I knew that was not my creator, God. I just knew it. It did not fit the presence that was awakened in me very early. And I'm going to try to say this because the survival of over 60 years of ministry, of being controversial on more than one level. Controversial as a human being, first of all. I do not fit what the Christian system would like me to be as a minister. There is a certain thing for ministers, and who I am does not fit that. And I'm sure we're still dealing with that at some level here. I'm sure we are. And I live with that. I've lived with that all my life, is that people cannot reconcile the fact of someone who is born differently than the norms that are accepted as moral and right can also be connected to a God that loves them and uses them and calls them. So I know what that is. But because so early, as I said and listened about this God of the Old Testament being the Father of Jesus, something innately in me said, this is not what I'm experiencing in me. It just did not resonate. Now, it did, I know our time's up, but I got to say this is important. It did not resonate, not because of any teaching that I had been given. I wasn't taught this is right or this is wrong about this idea. It's something that was so innately in me that it was my own experience of what I believe was my gnosis moment. I just knew. Are you following me? I didn't know through some knowledge or through some teaching. I just knew in the core and the essence of my being that this was not a God that hated people like me. Not only did I deal with that issue, but also the issue that I did not conform to traditional Christian teaching early. This is not a new thing for me. This started at the very beginning of my ministry, that I became controversial with the teachings that I did. So not only was I controversial as just a human being and trying to fit into the spiritual, religious, Christian format to be accepted as that, I was controversial because my message did not fit the doctrines of the Christian church. So I'm telling you all of that to tell you that I am the result of the experience of what I'm connecting here with gnosis. And I remain drawing that. When things were rough out here and people were giving me a rough time and not accepting me or leaving me or whatever all that stuff was out there because of who I am, it didn't make me or break me. Because I was drawing from something in me that was given to me. Just me. Not, does that make sense to you? In other words, anything would have shaken me that had its source outside of me. But I wasn't shaken from what had come from within me. What had been born. That knowing. And don't think I didn't want to change my beliefs at times to fit other people's beliefs. Don't think I didn't want to be accepted at times. Don't think I didn't want to join times. And I did do too much in my younger, early years of hiding myself too much. I admit that. I admit the 80s and was a time of great discovery for me, and you know, the fame of it and all of that made me more tempted to become what they wanted me to be so I could be accepted. But in the end, my gnosis won. My knowing won. And that's why I'm saying that to tell you this is my personal connection to this teaching. So if this sounded complicated to you because you don't know who Irenaeus is or whatever, they're just people that was early, who had a different opinion, who had the use of using myth to tell their stories that was coming from gnosis. Yes, on here you see them as heretics. We would be called heretics.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
You're probably being called a heretic. Or you're in some cult. I'm just finishing watching a documentary on how to become a cult leader.
That was a good one.
Yes. It's scary to me though. I'm saying, ooh, we teach that. Ooh, we believe this, we believe that. So I've done everything I know how to not be a cult leader and yet teach some things that some cults do teach. And they were called cults because the teachings were different than traditional Christianity. It's not that they weren't true. It's because greed got in the way and people started worshiping one central person. And I close with one more experience, because experience is the most treasure thing that I have to give you. I don't know how it happened. I don't know exactly when. It was in the 70s or so that I had this experience, and I'm going to formulate it to you in conversation. But it is, I have allowed you to be who you are to make sure that people do not follow you for you, but will see me in you. I just felt chills when I mean, when you have those kind of experiences and you go, I get it. I get it. Why you gave me a thorn in the flesh that I be not exalted above measure. That's what Paul said. You give me a thorn in the flesh so that I be not exalted. See, we exalted Paul later, but Paul's not some special saint. He was a man of great torment. He hated himself. He had such self-loathing about himself, and I'm very convinced that probably he was dealing with his own sexuality, if you really read what he said. Because he says, my flesh and my members wants one thing, but my spirit wants another thing. Oh, how unworthy am I. That's not the Paul's preaching religion. He's some high spiritual being. But no, he was a human being that dealt with his own flesh because his flesh came from Yahweh. And that's why I heard years ago, go and tell them, I was in a convention, that I did not create their physical bodies. Because I knew if the God that was in me, the true creator of my spirit, would have created my body, it would have resonated with my spirit, and it would not have been subject to illness, death, sickness, or aging. So this is what kind of I was trying to move us. I support, Rhonda, what you were sharing with us about that, and I know we need that. But we mustn't forget that there's a part of us that doesn't need that, that needs to know that it is eternal and has no beginning and has no end, that is life. And that it's not about making our living always better or longer, but it is reaching the life that we are in ourselves that has no beginning and basically has no end. So I'm just having to thank you. I told you this is why I'm doing a little trial run here, because if this is just something for me, it's just for me. You may not connect with this particular thing in teaching, but I think if you'll stay with it, I do want to go into more about who is this God of the Old Testament? And why did Jesus say to them who came out from the Old Testament? He's talking about the Jewish people who are now saved because they're converted to Christ's teachings and said, you do not know what you worship, and what you worship is the devil or Ealaboth. If you look up Ealaboth on the thing, you will see a gross entity being that I believe today is being worshipped through much of religion. How do I know that? Because of the fruit of the world. The world is not in better shape. After 2,000 years of Christianity, things are not and have not gotten better. The history is wars, hatred, how human beings treat each other, racism, all of these horrible things that have gone on, and me, has got up and learned how to make an excuse out of it to make this God look good, and I will not do it any longer.
Amen.
Now, I'm just old and cranky, I don't know, but I will not keep covering up for this God, because Jesus' Father seeketh me to worship him in spirit and in truth. And I will no longer serve the Father that has produced a world that is lesser than the world of spirit. So, think upon these things. Anybody have anything to say? I know our time's up. You probably have things to do, but I want to give, yes.
Well, I think in you saying that maybe this, I would welcome this being more than just an introduction and something that continues.
Right.
Because it sounds like this is a subject that we really need to dive into.
And it is a
You
subject.
feel a need that, with opening up with all of us, that we can dive into it. And this is not a 2 or 3 week thing. This is
No,
this
it's not.
is really a new train of thought.
Yeah.
So I would just like to welcome that.
Okay, because I'm wrestling with it. I'm just wrestling with it because I don't want to cause controversy, and I want to bring peace and peace of mind. But if the only way to bring peace of mind is to keep stroking your already belief systems, I can't do that. I'm not the leader for you. I'm here to challenge it. I'm challenging it in myself. There's still beliefs that I hold that I'm finding through here I need to revisit and look at. Yes, Beth?
I have a question. You say you're feeling some resistance. For me, it's not resistance. I'm totally open to whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
I don't have a total understanding of it. Maybe that's the resistance you're feeling rather than actual resistance.
Well, and
I don't
that-
feel
but-
any resistance to it whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's it. We have to understand it. And that's going to take a little while for us to put the pieces together a little bit.
So it really boils down to willingness
Right.
as opposed to
right.
resistance.
Yeah.
Who of us is willing to approach a new way of thinking or a new whatever? Barb?
Yes.
Yeah. Chris, Barb.
Well, I think if we weren't willing to, we wouldn't be here. We'd be somewhere else.
No, I agree. I had a question though, as you were talking. This applies to all of us. Long ago and far away when they incorporated this, not corporate, when the United States of America began, all right, Declaration of Independence, that a lot of those leaders were Masons, which came from the Knights Templar, Rosicrucians, and on our money it says, "In God we trust." What God do you think it is? Because they weren't your basic Christians, Baptists, Protestants. I mean, they all came on the boat. They were all under the umbrella of Christian. But if you stop to think about it, they weren't your basic everyday Joe. who was creating these documents.
Well, even this gets into the Cathars, that was
Yeah, yeah.
destroyed by the church. I mean, the church tried to wipe out anybody that did not agree with it
Absolutely.
at that particular time. And I have to say, even in modern,
Take your mic off.
Yes, he did.
Sorry. I'm
So
still
what that
on.
was done.
No, you didn't tell me to stop the broadcast. I'm still on.
Okay, you take the Masons. In other words, the Masons had their teachings. So if they would have written that, whoever did, they would have meant whatever God that they were trying to promote.
Sort of opens up a whole,
Yeah, just be careful of the word God. That's all I'm telling you. And that's a tough one on religion. Because people just say, God, I pray to God. I do this with the God. What God? What are you talking about? Where are you coming from?
Who's your daddy?
Who's your daddy? I know, I just know. So, anything else, or I'll let you go. Yes. Okay, well, thank you so much for your openness to receive. Again, I don't know that I picked out the exact one. I was torn between two. But I wanted to give you just a little early history of the church, how it kind of came together in
I
Christianity.
think it was a good place to start.
yeah,
Good,
I didn't see
okay.
anyone get up and walk out.
No.
Well,
Yay.
There you go.
That's great. All right, thank you so much. Have a great day and the rest of the week. And
Thank you, David.
remember,
Yes, thank you.
Sandra will be here next Wednesday to repeat her sacred geometry class. And some of you are telling me you're not going to be here, so Sandra, it's not a personal thing. We'll do our best to get people here. I'll promote it Sunday again, and we'll get up the best class that we can for you. Thank you.